All right, we are live. If you're dropping into this video, first of all, I'll say thanks so much for coming by. And My name is Logan Skis. Today I'm going to be documenting some of my methodology on designing the business architecture for a new project. So, colleagues and I have been putting together a visual model of a business map. We call it the venture map for some time. We've had the great fortune of being able to test this on our own businesses, but also businesses for our strategic consulting clients. My objective is to go for 90 days and basically document a run through of the entire map, or at least a pretty substantial portion of it. Now, we started in my last videos looking at vision and team culture, as we believe that's really where it all begins. We want to anchor the map into a strong and compelling reason, a just cause. In other words, as Simon Sinek would say. So we've found our why. That's our nucleus. And for us, the purpose why we're doing it is we know that entrepreneurs are in need of a better way to clearly align and strategize with their team in order to mitigate risks and streamline operations. We developed a venture map framework to help business leaders create a multidimensional model of their business that will serve as a map to visualize and optimize all systems and processes, a tool for onboarding team members, and a repository for their intellectual property. So, if you want to know more about how we structured our guiding principles, what comes after that, our leaderboard, team tapestry, and even some of our core narrative. For example, how we structure the deliverable of our origin story and how we translate these things into blog posts and copy through Jarvis, the copywriting AI, to streamline that. You're welcome to check the videos I've posted before. If at any point in time you see a deliverable, an asset here that is something you could use, you could put to use, something that you need, just let me know. You could leave a comment below. Check the link in the description. It's an easy way to get a hold of me. And in fact, you can not only get one of these deliverables, I'll give you the base architecture for the entire map as a template. Happy to do that for free. In fact, we want to find like-minded entrepreneurs in the world who demand more from technology in terms of how we align with our teams, reinforce our cultures, streamline our processes, and validate our business models while maximizing capital efficiency and keeping a tight finger on the pulse of the needs in our marketplace. Moving forward, today I want to address some elements of a project plan. Now, I've been involved with several startups in my entrepreneurial journey, and I've had the insight into what happens when no one on the team has any formal training in project planning and how uh, devastatingly consequential that can be. It can be a real backbreaker. So, I've also, on the other side of that, been involved with teams and startup projects where there's a very strong basis of understanding and best practices for project planning. In fact, we've even worked with project planners before, PMPs project management professionals. These are folks who are certified or licensed. If you know, let me drop a note in the box. But they're a certified field. Project management professionals are highly respected from my point of view. These folks are quite skilled. So I've got just a quick sort of cheat sheet dialed in here on some of the core elements that they'll discuss in project planning. So this is not meant to be an exhaustive list, and by no means am I claiming to be any sort of expert in the field. In fact, I'm just sharing some of my learnings in the hopes that um, it'll help me better understand how to document what we're doing here and be willing to share it with others. But also, if I can help consolidate your learning curve and show you a little bit of what we've found to be effective, then, I'm all about that. The rising tide floats all boats, as they say. So, truly, if you're starting internally, a scope statement or a stakeholder interview is typically a great place to start. If you're working with an outside party, a letter of intent can also be a really great way to start. But truth be told, if we're cutting down to the bone and we just got to get aligned on what it has to be done, we're agreeing that something's going to be done, and to really get alignment, I kind of view it in big chunks, which is first is the what, and these are the deliverables. Um, they don't have to be formatted like this, but it could be. It really could be. So a work breakdown structure is kind of like this tree, and it lists out deliverables. So I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to actually just grab this and take it over. So I'm coming out of my uh, Talos OS1 board here. This is kind of our mega board. We've got quite a substantial volume of assets populating the map here. And on this series, I'm going to be fleshing out brand OS1. And this is just a big whiteboard, basically. This is pretty much what it is, with a ton of shapes on top. And we view this as a construction paper project, macaroni noodle project even. And it's a low fidelity prototype for us to validate our logic and our approach on uh, the venture map, essentially. So when I'm looking at this, right, we effectively define some very high level elements of our culture. And we really want to move forward into the market analysis, business modeling type of stuff, but we want to do it with a shared understanding on the plan as well as the cultural elements of why we're doing it. So we've kind of answered that question. So now we're getting into the what. And that's the deliverables. If you remember over here, we were kind of going out in concentric circles. The nucleus is our core, our why. The team is around that, kind of the guardians of the purpose. The method, we agree to common behaviors, aspirational behaviors, and environmental priorities as a group, how we will treat one another, for example, and the kind of space, so to speak, that we'll define. And then the last outer ring is just very high level, kind of the membrane of the cell, and it's what it is. And we have a few words that define that, but let's just take it to the next step, because where we really want to pick up from, everything in this is kind of left to right. It's a linear pattern, so it's feeding through time. And we want to start doing a deeper dive into the what will be done. And this is where the work breakdown structure really can come in handy for our own work as entrepreneurs. If you're a solopreneur, it's still valuable to have these sorts of things, because like I believe it was Churchill, he says, plans are useless, but planning is invaluable. And by just going through the total volume of, what it'll realistically take to get an operation off the ground or map a pre-existing operation. If you're a business of one or a business of 100, whether you've been operating for years or you're literally just starting out and filing your LLC and getting a domain name, it doesn't really matter. There's pretty big components that are going to have to be mapped out at some point. Not to say that they're all equal in terms of priority. A lot of folks will put their emphasis on market-facing assets first, and they don't really want to hear much of culture. They don't really want to hear much in terms of market analysis or strategy or a validation sequence, where they're extracting a hypothesis from their business model and going to market in a very rigorous and evidence-based way. And even in terms of continuity on the marketing side, they don't, a lot of times people are just really chomping at the bit to get sort of into the market traction domain and understand how they can get traffic to their funnel. Or if they're even less sophisticated, they're saying, I need sales. right? That's what it boils down to. We need cash flow. We need to increase revenue. From there, they can look at their channels where those sort of prospective customers are coming from, how they nurture those leads and fuel it in. But ultimately, what I believe most, in my experience, a lot of times, most cases happens is you sort of continue swimming upstream because you can't really have sales unless there's some sort of mechanism that feeds prospective customers to a conversion engine. Um, Typically, a best practice to accomplish that, certainly within uh, businesses with a strong online presence, is that of a sales funnel and nurture sequences. And then typically, if you did all of that, you would typically find that you're going to need to drive traffic to that funnel by some means. Um, and if you're going to be driving traffic for any amount of time, ultimately you're going to need to start thinking about marketing. Um, and if you're going to do marketing for a period of time, you're going to probably want to start thinking about an overarching strategy for the brand. And then typically the things that'll define all of that. I mean, if you start at market analysis and a SWOT assessment in your business model canvas, it's going to be pretty inhumane and devoid of the dream. So having a really strong root in that purpose is meaningful. Um, our purpose is we were frustrated and overwhelmed with the silos, the digital silos between the cloud storage services, our Dropbox or Google Drive, our desktop having just documents and spreadsheets and files and Photoshop documents and website pages and just emails and all these siloed platforms with file types. What we wanted was a single unified place where we could view everything. And we've been having a lot of fun working on that together as a small group for a little bit of time here. And now I have the benefit of sharing this with viewers and also being able to share the venture map template itself. I'm even willing to jump onto Zoom with you, get a venture map template plugged in to your own Miro board, which is the platform we're using to host this, and help you get a general understanding of what to do next. And in fact, you could simply just plan to follow along with me throughout the series, and as I show you the deliverables we have and sort of lay it all out step by step. We'll view this as a community-based project. So work breakdown structure is a great way to go about defining the what. These are the core deliverables, right? We kind of have it broken down as it scales throughout. And these are typically some of the big ones that you're going to need um, defined at the bare minimum from our point of view. This is, of course, speaking to the customer journey. So there's our work breakdown structure. We're just going to look at a couple other elements here. Right. So at a bare minimum, if we've defined our what, we then want to define our when. We can definitely get more clarity on a what. For example, it's pretty low fidelity in term and easy just to say, okay, well, we're going to have a origin story, or we're going to have a lean canvas developed. But if you don't have any visual reference for what that looks like, sometimes it's best to have an appendix in this case, especially if you're working with strategic consulting clients. We've found out that it's very meaningful to have a visual reference that sort of breaks things down. You can break down the time here, sort of do some defining terms, um, and then show what each deliverable looks like. And we think that this is probably a healthy thing to do. So you have your deliverable breakdown tree, but then bringing in an appendix that's sort of, even if it's rough, if you're saying we're going to make a website wireframe, bringing in an example website wireframe just to show them, even something if you haven't built before, if you're doing a sell then build type of strategy, you could just provide references, right, the bare minimum. We think that's probably a smart and healthy thing to do to keep alignment and sustain rapport. Let's see. An appendix is a great thing to have there. We're very strong believers of the importance of reference material throughout the journey. All right. So with that being said, let's tell you what. I might as well bring it over. Let's see what happens here. Maybe we'll just do the general template. Do some real-time workflow here. At the end of the day, you're going to want to be able to sit down with stakeholders. You're going to want to be able to sit down with teammates and even with customers and break down visually what it is you're going to be providing, right? The what. So it's kind of a second layer deep to the what. Maybe it's probably right to put that over here. So over time, we can come back through and expand this. It will undoubtedly be a large document, probably something in the ballpark of 18 to 30 pages, something like that. But yeah, having a visual appendix where you could sort of come through and say, yeah, deliverable 1.1 is a project charter, but delivering something like this beyond that. So if there's questions and you say, well, what is the project charter? Have a definition there and break it down even simpler. What's the core benefit? And then a visual indication of what that looks like. We'll just go ahead and keep on pushing forward here. After we've defined the what, and we've done that at a sufficient level, the next thing is the when. It's like we know what we're going to be building out, and now the question is, when are we going to be building it out? So that's important, right? We can sort of illustrate this, and this is going to be more or less the schedule that we'll follow in this course, in this series that I'm recording here on YouTube and sharing on other channels. Building out a brand architecture, basically that's the when that we're going to use to map out the entirety of this sort of first business. And at the end, it's going to be accumulated in a mini course and delivered for free, as well as the templates, or the base template of the venture map, etc. Let's see. So you can post in a Gantt chart. That's a great tool. Now there's different ways to view the Gantt chart. We love dark mode, and that's why we've got everything pretty subdued here in terms of the color palette. That works for us internally. If something works for you, I've had clients who love all sorts of colors, and you can definitely take it that direction. Another element to consider is you don't always have to view it in a traditional format. Sometimes it's helpful to use emojis and stickers and different types of structure, for sure. Beyond that, beyond the what and the when, it depends on the size of the team. If it's a third-party project, of course, you're going to want to look at contracting assets like a statement of work, a master service agreement, super helpful. You can do team accountability, agendas, project change request, again, if you're working with a client. But and project status reports. This is healthy, especially as we start taking things into the market. But for the time being, I'd say, or a communication plan, I'd say we're going to just cap it with what's absolutely necessary. The biggest bang for the smallest amount of effort. And that's really defining the what and the when. And I have just that additional insight here into what an appendix could look like. We could also do an alternative structure of a journey map or something that says we're going to do these phases, and it could have more of a unconventional structure than a Gantt chart. But for today, that'll be sort of the game plan. We're kind of in this first week here. It's ambitious in the current structure. We're most likely going to reevaluate this and see if we can't break it down in a little bit pronounced way, or prolonged way, I should say. But if we have these sorts of project plans, just as a core foundation, so not only as an entrepreneur, as a leader, we can come through and say, well, this is what we're going to be doing. And this is when, how, basically the how, right? This is the threshold of performance, the fidelity standard. That's very helpful. But at the bare minimum, this is what we're going to do, and this is when we're going to do it. That's pretty helpful. Um, Definitely helpful. From there, we're going to look at our market analysis. I've got my box down here, and the natural progression from all of this now is to kind of say, well, let's get to work. Let's do this thing. And market analysis is a super interesting field. I'm by no means an MBA or formally trained in any of this. In fact, if anybody out there is, I would love to learn from you. If you got additional insights, we've had the privilege of learning a thing or two over time in our studies and in our practice, and I'm definitely planning on learning a little more live during this sort of documented series in this practice, um, with the YouTube streaming and my pre-recorded videos. One of the things we like to begin with, and I'll do live here as I close this up and set it up for next time, is what Strategizer calls the environment map. We're huge fans of what they've done with this sort of concept, and it makes a lot of sense from our point of view. I've got all of their assets here represented. Total respect and props to their content. They have full ownership of it, and these things are online for free. You can download from their website. Definitely recommend checking out the Strategizer books and YouTube channel. Definitely been a beneficiary of learning from them. So the way that they break this down is pretty straightforward. They have their business model canvas here in the center, and we did struggle for some time to reconcile what should go first. And what we eventually came down to is, after studying Steve Blank's approach, which he always talks, and for customer discovery, he talks about doing a market size, a step first. And um, you could also look at doing something like a Dream 100. This is a more kind of modern Russell Brunson ClickFunnels kind of a guerrilla warfare thing, and really love that approach as well. But we believe that it's a healthy thing to do to just at least consider these elements before getting into the weeds. So I'll just break this down a little further. So I think this comes naturally before market size. If you are out there watching this and think that something else should come before that, by all means, let me know. So four forces, effectively four elements, four sides to this. And at the front end, we're looking at our market forces. At the top end, we're looking at key trends. On the backside, we'll look at industry forces, and below, macroeconomic forces. Each of these has just a question. And if you're on a team and you go through here for 20 minutes, 45 minutes, an hour, an afternoon, and even at the bare minimum, just answer some of these um, questions. And if you don't know them, you can Google them at the bare minimum. It's helpful in terms of preparedness, not because you're going to have something on an arbitrary digital whiteboard somewhere, but because it'll help prepare the team and really ensure they understand some of these core concepts for best practice. And it's biting off a lot. Now, not all of it will be relevant to all business cases, but nonetheless, it's a healthy practice. Um, from there, we'll of course go into our market sizing, and this will be the last deliverable I pull over, and maybe I'll pick it up here next time on the live stream. But once we have gone through a workshop inside of the environment map, we could simply just have notes here in each of these spaces. We could draft up entire dossiers or reports for each of these four sectors. Or we could simply just review it and have some open-ended discussion, whatever threshold of alignment and comprehension is right for your business. That's kind of what we do. We can always come back to it later. From there, we want to, of course, identify our addressable market, and that's a healthy practice. But I'll leave the live stream off here and say thanks so much for watching. This uh, journey, this YouTube stream, is a documentation of my uh, practice and methodology. It's something my colleague Jack Hickler and I have put together over the last couple of years, and it's evolved quite a bit. And we're excited to share it with the world. We're excited to continue validating this unique approach in the market with other businesses. Right now, we have the privilege of working with a number of clients here in South Florida, but we are looking to expand our uh, client base and are currently looking for 3 business owners who are interested in leveraging the power of business architecture and visualizing their business processes, iterating upon their primary business collateral, and deconflicting, disambiguating any of the complexities within their marketing channels, with and the traceability of leads throughout their funnel, and maximizing the efficiency of their conversion engine or their sales processes, as well as understanding what sort of uh, elements to their operations we could provide further support in from a team training perspective, from an automations perspective, from reinforcing the culture of both the team as well as the customer, ensuring that there's a consistent surprise and delight to retain those users and push them through cross-channel sale opportunities, as well as referrals and advocacy programming. So having all of that mapped out in a way that kind of comes full circle and ties the advocacy and referral elements all the way into that place where we started from with the culture is really what we're all about. We love to do this kind of work. I'm going to be building out this sort of base template here and sharing it with the world. If you have thoughts, a perspective, or an interest in this sort of approach, just go ahead and drop a comment below, like the video, subscribe if you want to continue watching. But even better than that, you can just click the link here in the description. Check out the next steps. Let me know where to send your very own venture map template. And if you want, you could even follow on from that. Schedule time to connect with me one-on-one on a Zoom call. Happy to help set up your template. And from there, if you want to explore further alignment or engagement opportunities, happy to do so. But that's all I got for today, folks. We did it, some covered some ground here. We got a chance to look at 3 elements from project planning and how we approach that with a work breakdown structure and a Gantt chart. Going one step deeper is a visual appendix to define the threshold of quality for deliverables. And we're just going to kind of continue pushing down the top and look at our market analysis, and beginning that with Strategizer's beautiful environment canvas here, and then pushing forward into what Steve Blank says to do first in the customer discovery journey, which is defining that market size. I'm going to pick up here next time, and we'll look at some real data, and we'll maybe even break down some behind the scenes of how we get that and what our approach is, what the gurus in the world suggest you do when conducting a market size, when you're conducting market sizing. But for today's video, that's all I got. I look forward to connecting with you all soon as we continue bringing life to this venture map and detailing the process, documenting the process for the world to see. All right, until then.